Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talking Logistics, where we have conversations with thought leaders and newsmakers in the supply chain logistics industry. It's my great pleasure to welcome today's program Diana Bullington, who's IT Director at Syfan Logistics, and Prasad Gollapalli, who is founder and CEO of Trucker Tools. And today we're going to talk about the value of end-to-end freight visibility for 3PLs and customers. Now, there's always been a great deal of need for end-to-end freight visibility, but as customer delivery expectations have become more stringent in recent years, it really has become a must-have, capability, especially for third-party logistics providers. I mean, what are the main challenges involved, and how is technology helping? What are the main benefits of freight visibility for both 3PLs and their customers? And what are the main challenges involved? So those are just some of the questions we're going to address in today's episode, and it's great to have Diana with us to share Syfan Logistics' success story and with freight visibility, and of course Prasad to share his insights and advice on this topic too. So Diana, Prasad, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Adrian. Great to be here.
Thanks, Adrian. Great to have you.
So Diana, before we dive into the topic, I always like to know a little bit about how people get involved with the industry, a little bit about the companies that they come from. So why don't you tell us briefly a little bit about Syfan Logistics, the types of services you offer and the industries that you serve, and what's your role at the company?
Sure. Syfan Logistics is a 3PL, obviously. We've been in business, the owners have been in business of some form of transportation since 1986. So we got 30 plus years experience among many things. We focus on full truckload. We're not in LTL yet. They may be coming in the future. From anything from temp control freight to van freight, expedited flatbed. We do a little bit of everything, just whatever the customer needs. We do have a small fleet of our own assets, as well as using outside carriers throughout the business. Syfan Logistics itself have been in business since 2011. I've been with Syfan for 5 years now. Have a brokerage background myself. Been in brokerage since 1995. Wrote a TMS at that point in time with a group of developers. So have been in the technology industry since the late 80s. So have a lot of experience, but also enjoy working as a family business because Syfan is family owned. So I get the values of that kind of community. We've been in McLeod since 2012. And I come with a Bachelor of Science degree in business data processing.
Wow, great background. Obviously there in that family business and in the service side of things, but also very much on the IT side of things, which is
yes.
Those two worlds have certainly come together very strongly. Now, if I heard you correctly, you have both your own set of assets, your own fleet that you use, but you also use third-party carriers as well. Is that correct?
That is correct. We do both, whatever, depending on what the customer needs or where our best coverage is. If we don't have fleet, then we're obviously going to send an outside carrier in that will assist that carrier, just making sure that customer is taken care of. Is customer service is by far our number one top thing.
Right. Well, and a lot of times it's that, which is going to lead me to my next question, but a lot of time it's that using those third-party carriers, particularly some of the smaller carriers, where,
right.
It becomes challenging to get that, that visibility that you need. So that brings me to my next question. I mean, why is having, accurate end-to-end freight visibility, so important to the customers that you serve? And maybe talk a little bit about the types of customers that you serve. And is it truly becoming a must-have capability for 3PLs today?
Absolutely. We focus on at least 85% of things that are tracking and where we're going, but it's important for the customer to know exactly where their freight is at all times. They expect, in most cases, updates every 15 minutes, some of them an hour, but a minimum of an hour by any means. But also, if it also helps them to be able to schedule, they know if this load is going to be running late, okay, so I've got to move this dock time back and when that load can get there. So the more visibility that you can give them, the better off you're going to be. A load's late, you're going to shut down a warehouse or a assembly line. So it's the on-time freight is very important, and being able to see that just at the drop of a hat and it come back and feed into your TMS is by far our top priorities. It helps you stay on top of the issues. You know what's going on, so you be proactive instead of reactive.
Right. I mean, I think that's an important point because, I mean, obviously you want to be able to meet the delivery commitments that you've made with your customers, right? So being able to track that, to be able to see whether you're on schedule and so forth, I think is important. But even, sometimes, things just are outside of your control, and sometimes things are going to be late for whatever reason. But just having that visibility and being able to proactively notify customers allows them, to your point, to replan or reschedule, right? Instead of just waiting in the dark, not knowing what's happening, they can at least, utilize their resources, more productively by just re-optimizing or rescheduling what they were planning, to do to begin with.
Exactly.
Now, can you comment a little bit about the types of industries that you serve? I mean, are these like, where time is so important for them?
We do everything from transportation to hauling car parts in. So obviously, if you got a transmission, you can't build the part. To food industry, of making sure that things are getting to distribution centers, to products. We do just about a little bit of everything across. Expedited probably being our #1 target, which makes tracking even more important because those are time-sensitive loads. They're going into places that have warehouses or places that have assembly lines, so things have to be on time.
No, absolutely. So it sounds like obviously the industries that you're serving, the type of customers that you're serving, I mean, time, having time definite deliveries and having that visibility is very, very key there. So Prasad, kind of shift over to you now. You work with a variety of different 3PLs and brokers, and I'm sure much of what Diana, talked about, some common threads there with some of the customers that you work with as well. I mean, what if you were to summarize, if you will, what are some of the main challenges 3PLs and brokers have traditionally faced in providing, accurate end-to-end freight visibility?
So, as you said, today when you talk to brokers and 3PLs, majority of them face a low visibility when it comes to visibility solutions. So what I mean by low visibility is, if a broker wants to track 100 loads with a solution, what percentage of those 100 loads are being successfully tracked today? And that number is as low as sometimes maybe 20 or 30 out of 100 are successfully tracked. So it's like, if you have a car in your driveway, out of 100 times that you try to start the engine, only 20 or 30 times it works. And that's no good. So that this poor visibility is a huge challenge. Now, when you combine that with accurate information or lack of accurate information that most of these brokers face, so it's more like when you have a visibility on a load from pickup to delivery, halfway through the visibility disappears, or it's not accurate. It's putting a truck within a 5-mile radius that you're not confident to tell a shipper that guy has arrived at a particular stop. So you have to call the guy. So it's as good as having a car that when it stops anywhere along the route. So you're bound to take a cab or something, right? So the low visibility of a technology or the poor compliance of a technology acts as one of the major issues. The other two issues that brokers face today are driver resistance. So when we say driver assistance, if you go to a driver and say, I need you to download an app, they're not just jumping and saying, yeah, I'm happy to download an app. We can talk about ourselves. We're not happy to download an app today. There is an app overload, even for us as individuals. So you can only think about a driver who is being forced to download many apps. On top of it, if a driver is forced to use an app that only does one thing, in this case, if it only does visibility, the driver is even more resistant to that because the driver thinks, well, this is a big brother. So that's the second issue that brokers face. The third one is carrier compliance to any technology. In today's world, we can't have visibility without carriers adopting to the technology. Any technology that we select, unless you make it really appealing to carriers and drivers, they're not going to adapt to it. They're not going to adapt to it. You can't really force the visibility out of that. So say, for example, you take ELDs that are available today. Everybody has the common notion that there is an ELD device in the truck. So why can't I get that information? Most of the carriers don't like to share that information because they're not sure who gets that information and for how long. That lack of transparency creates lack of trust, and that's the main reason why these carriers don't adopt it. And that is also true when it comes to an app that only does tracking. So these three issues, in essence, what they result into is an operational inefficiency for a broker when it comes to visibility, or in most cases, staff frustration, carrier frustration. It's just, it piles into a big problem.
You raised some very, important points there. I think all those three things in combination, I mean, if it was just one of those things, it might be a little bit more manageable, but it's, those three factors in combination with one another that makes it, even more challenging. I mean, I know, speaking for myself personally, I think, we all have these smartphones, and I've got so many different apps on it. Sometimes I get lost, even just trying to find the right app, trying to find, where did I put that app? Is it on the first page? Is it on the second page? And, there's so many different applications out there from the B2B world that you can just imagine if everybody wanted everybody to download their app, you can have a phone with, 80 pages of, scrolling through to find the right carriers or the right shippers or the right 3PLs app that you want to use. And that becomes a little daunting, for everybody involved, the drivers, the carriers, and everyone involved. So Diana, let's go back to you and kind of, obviously, you probably face some of those challenges as well that Prasad talked about, but you were able to overcome them, and you're able to kind of, achieve some benefits from improving end-to-end freight visibility at your operations there. Can you share a little bit about your journey and experience in providing, freight visibility? I mean, and what factors ultimately led you to select Trucker Tools as your, technology partner?
Sure. We actually are always looking at new technology. Me being an IT person myself, I'm always in the market of what's new, what works best for the drivers, what works best for my team. So we were at a McLeod user conference several years ago, my boss and I, and met Prasad and his team. And we became very intrigued with what they were offering. We're like, this is too good to be true. So we actually set up a demo. And you could actually see the exact spot I was sitting in my office, which totally intrigued us. But probably our number one biggest thing was cost. At that time, 2 years ago, Trucker Tools could beat anybody else's cost. Besides accuracy, they do on a per load basis. Most other vendors were doing on a per day basis. Most of our loads can haul 3 to 5 days. Not unusual at all. So if you do that, $15 to $20 a load, that soon adds up. So the costing was a huge thing with us. Other trackers tend to use geofencing and go to an appless track. And that's not a bad thing, but if you're getting big cities like Atlanta, which is basically where we're located right outside of Atlanta, 30 miles makes a huge deal. 30 miles in Atlanta can mean that load's going to be late. So having a more accurate tracking was huge. The other things that we really liked was, obviously, as Prasad talked about, was his app. Okay, so they didn't just give me a tracking app. They gave my truckers the ability to find car washes, truck washes. They could find restaurants. They could find gas. So it gave them more than just a tracking device. So it gave us a selling tool to be able to use for them as well. Trucker Tools was great. They were fairly new at the point we started 2 years ago. They quickly said, okay, why doesn't this work for you? What can we change? So we were on the front end of helping them do some design work and getting things the way that brokers and other transportations would have a really good product to be able to use. And that's fantastic because, again, their customer service is phenomenal compared to any other vendors that we use.
Now, did you start completely from scratch in terms of freight visibility, or did you use a different solution ahead of time that you replaced? How did that work?
We actually use several solutions because we also have some customer specific stuff. So we kind of added Trucker Tools in on almost a trial basis. We went on a per load basis, and just to see how it worked, we took one division that needs more visibility than others and used those as our test pilot. They fell in love with it. They will not track anything through anybody else but Trucker Tools. But we offer 3 to 4 different vendors even now, just depending on customer coverage and that kind of thing. Some people don't want to download the app. We want them to be compliant tracking, so we may have to go to an appless, even though that's becoming more difficult. So again, it's the team. Prasad and his team have become not just a vendor, but their family. So, it's kind of cool to be working that close with someone.
That's a great that's a great quote. I mean, I think one of the things I've been hearing more and more over the past few years between for companies is that exactly what you just said. When they're looking for some kind of technology solution, yes, it's got to meet certain features and functions and capabilities, but they're really looking for a partner. Someone that aligns with their mission, someone that aligns with their culture, someone that aligns with where they want to go together. So I think, I think this is the first time I've heard someone refer to their IT partner as family. So I think that takes it even to another, dimension. But I think that's great. I think the other thing that you mentioned, because I was going to ask, is, in terms of how you rolled it out. So it sounds like, which is pretty common, you started out with a particular division or the particular customer, maybe some specific carriers to kind of test it out, kind of win that trust of and improve the technology, if you will, first. So that then that becomes easier to then roll it out to other carriers and other divisions, correct?
Exactly. When you start small and you build, you get your buy-in from your team, obviously, but also from your carriers. We also did some incentive plans. Okay, so you do this, and we're going to incentivize you this to get them to download the app. That has worked great for us. In turn, we got the tracking we needed, and the carrier got something in return as well.
Well, great, Diana. Great, great points there. I know a lot of times, finding a technology partner, like I mentioned before, I never heard of someone referred to as finding a family member, but that brings me to my question to you, Prasad. Obviously 3PLs, brokers, I mean, they're constantly looking at new technology and new partners to work with. I mean, what questions should, 3PLs and brokers ask, when evaluating, different, technology options, and what factors should they, take into consideration?
So, if you're a broker or a 3PL looking for a technology solution to help you with visibility, the most important thing you should be looking at in a technology partner is someone who is progressive, meaning somebody who doesn't see technology as a one and done. So that's one of the things that Diana mentioned earlier too. As a technology provider, you will not know all the answers to the questions. The other answers lie with your customers who are like Syfan Logistics and others. Unless you make them part of the solution, you're not going to really be able to solve that. So that's the second thing that the broker should look for is a relationship where they become part of the solution, and not, it's a collaboration between the technology player and the broker. Together they can solve the problem. The third one is customer centric. Today's world, software is one part of the solution, but you also need to have the support, which actually helps you collect enough feedback to enhance your product. So all these three elements work in tandem, if anything, to solve the problem. So you want somebody who is going to work with you almost like an extension to your team, or as an extension to your family, like Diana said. That would be the best credit someone can give. Thank you, Diana, for good comments.
You're very welcome. It's a pleasure working with you.
Same here, thank you.
It's great. I mean, we've written a lot about how companies, and from the standpoint that we've written it, has been, manufacturers, retailers are competing on customer experience, right? So it's no longer about lowest cost, but it's about delivering an enhanced customer experience. And I think it's interesting, both your comments is that part of what, it becomes important is the relationship between the technology partner and the customer. And the customer experience you can deliver beyond just obviously meeting the features and functions of the technology, because you're right. I mean, I think this technology is going to continue to evolve. The customer expectations, whether it's Diana's expectations or Diana's customers' expectations, are going to continue to evolve. And really having all of you working in tandem to respond to whatever changes are going to be occurring in the industry moving forward, and working collaboratively together is an important aspect, of all of this. So Diana, I mean, can you share a little bit about some of the benefits that you've achieved to date, and what's next in your journey to deliver additional value and process efficiencies?
Obviously, the better visibility, accurate information. With Trucker Tools, they are a partner, integration partner with McLeod Software. So any tracking updates automatically feed back into the TMS, which means my drivers, they don't have to make phone calls. Everything's right there in front of them. So you get the communication that's instantly there. From documents, I can upload documents through Trucker Tools. So just the ability to have that helps us to have where we need to be. One of the big things that we recently have done with Trucker Tools is using their APIs. They will take an API and develop it for us. It actually sends some of that tracking onto our customer so that feeds back into their TMS instead of us having to manually update it or whatever. So that is a great partnership that Trucker Tools has been able to offer through their APIs, and they have been great working with our customers. One of our newest things that we've just rolled out in the last couple of months is their smart capacity product. We've had it for a while, but just have never gotten them on board. So giving the visibility of my freight compared to my trucks or other trucks in the industry is huge, because you can easily match what your freight is to the truck that's closest to it instantly, assign it right through there, set the tracking all in one step. So it gives us visibility even from that perspective of being able to see what truck is best to put on a load, which is absolutely amazing. The other piece that we're looking at doing is taking a carrier's capacity. So he sends me an email today and says, I have these trucks available. Well, okay, so they can maintain a spreadsheet for 15, 20, 30, 40 carriers, how many their core carriers are. Well, with Smart Capacity and Trucker Tools, I can email that list. With their technology, they can actually take that and upload it, so those, again, become part of the pool of trucks that are available. So, again, you get a better matching. And those are some of the, by far, the best features that we have absolutely fell in love with.
That's great. I mean, I think that is something that a lot of companies are focused on today in terms of how do you better and more intelligently match, freight demand with freight capacity out there, because there's a lot of inefficiencies in that process today. And certainly this is an area, I think, with smart capacity being an example of that, where technology is playing an important role. I mean, I know Prasad talked about earlier some of the challenges, and I think you might have mentioned this as well too, Dana. A lot of times, one of the symptoms of poor freight visibility, or the way it used to be done in the past, was drivers having to do daily or hourly check-ins. I mean, have you seen any improvement on that front?
Absolutely. It keeps, they're not on the phone as much because, again, the information is right there in front of them instantly. They never have to touch it. You set it up at a certain spot, point the load, it continues tracking as long as you want it to track. And so it's, it's seamless as far as we're concerned. Everything is together. So it's not just the tracking from low track. I also see something else. A driver calls in because he's in the middle of traffic. I see that all in one place. So everything is consolidated so they can instantly see a picture of what's happening without having to go to many different websites or, on the phone or waking a driver up. I mean, who wants to be woken up in the middle of the night just to give a check call? Well, with Trucker Tools, I know he's sitting still because that tracking is sitting in one spot for this period of time. So again, the visibility is just incredibly amazing.
Yeah, and I think you brought up another important point too earlier. Obviously the use of APIs right now to help facilitate, some of that information flow and the integration with your TMS, which is something that we're seeing, more and more of. Where really it's that integration is very important, because ultimately those two things need to work, very closely, together. The visibility aspect of it, but then ultimately have that information flow into as automatically as possible and as real time as possible into the TMS, so that you can continue to run your operations with as accurate and real-time information as possible. So, Diana spoke a little bit about kind of some of the newer things that they're working on together with you. But Prasad, I mean, how will technology continue to evolve and drive innovation when it comes to, freight visibility? I mean, what's next?
It's continuously evolving. As of today, I mean, if you look at what has been there 2 years back, 3 years back, it is consistently evolving. What was prevalent a couple of years back, whether it's cell phone triangulation and other technologies that have passed on, and now here we are focused on app-based tracking, GPS-based tracking. What comes next is the next generation of spreading and pushing that visibility into various TMSs, various parties. When I say parties, whether it's broker, 3PL, or a shipper, getting that information conveniently on time. I mean, the key to this is is one thing to have a technology that works seamlessly for visibility 100% of the time. But the second thing is getting that information to the right parties on time so that they can actually use that information to plan their dock operations. This is something that Diana touched in the earlier part. At the end of the day, we're all providing this service to the shipper and the consumer. We live in a world where when you order something on, let's say on Amazon or something, you know exactly when that package is being delivered or when it has delivered at your place. Having that convenience, that information on your phone is so powerful, especially when you're talking about big shippers or big brokers, because they need to really help each other to optimize supply chain. It's all about how do you eliminate exceptions when a freight is running behind schedule. What do you do to minimize or change your operations to minimize your loss? That's the key. As we expect everything that we order to be delivered to us within hours or maybe in a day, we're putting a lot of stress on supply chain. And so the people who are responsible for moving goods, they are looking at ways to cut cost. And that comes from having a lot of transparency from end to end. And there are a lot of players that are trying to plug the visibility in various parts of the supply chain. Eventually, this all has to be streamlined from end to end. Information has to go from one point to the other point. It doesn't matter who creates that information, but it needs to be dissipated properly. And more importantly, systems have to start taking alternative measures when there is a particular truck that's running behind, automatically telling the dock team, hey, here is a truck that's running behind, but you can start loading this other truck in place. So taking the next step, alternative steps, is going to be the future. Someday it's all going to be fully automated. I don't know if it will happen in our lifetime, but we're all working towards deriving these efficiencies.
I think one of the key things you said there is that, obviously, having that visibility is important, but, you ultimately have to do something with that information, right? Whether it's to re-optimize, whether it's to reschedule, whether it's to alert the customer, so on and so forth. And that's where, the APIs that we talked about, come in. That's where TMS solutions, come in, because they're the ones that help to, take those actions based on the data that's coming in and help to do that, re-optimization or reanalysis. And certainly I think, you brought up predictive, and I think that's some of the other things that you're beginning to see in the early stages today, that technology coming to the forefront. So Diana, Prasad, we're running short on time here, so I'm just going to go right to my last question. I'll start with you, Diana, as a way to wrap up. When it comes to providing accurate, end-to-end freight visibility, to customers, what is the biggest lesson learned from your journey and your experience, and what advice would you give, to others that are just starting out on their journey?
Well, your customers are going to require things to be accurate and in a timely manner. Trucker Tools has provided that by far more than most of our other providers. But again, their number one biggest thing that I focus on, that I love, is their customer service. I can literally reach out on a Saturday, which I did this past weekend. There was an issue, and I said, hey, send an email to their support team. Within a 30-minute period, even on a Saturday, I had a reply back, and the developers were working on it. My people had already placed a call into Trucker Tools. That is where the industry has to go to. That customer service has to be there, because Prasad's just one in a many of, and there's all kinds of vendors, tracking vendors that start up every single day. So you've got to be on the cutting edge. You've got to give your customers the support they need. Otherwise, they're going to go somewhere else and find somebody else. So that's one thing that Trucker Tools has given us: accurate, timely, and good customer service.
Great. Prasad, your advice for folks that are getting started on this journey.
Like Diana said, customer support is a very important thing. The second thing I'll say, if you're in the market today for visibility, don't settle for a visibility solution that only gives you 20% accuracy or compliance, or a 30% compliance. Demand a higher compliance. Today, most of our customers get over 90% visibility. On average, it's over 70% compliance. What we tell our customers is when you come to us, let's say you start at 60%. Our goal is to get you to 90%. 100% is usually very difficult. But if we are over 90%, 95%, that's amazingly powerful. And the way we want to get you from, let's say, 60 to 90 or 95 is our team works with your team and on best practices. More importantly, seeing what works, what doesn't work. So we're constantly working as a team. And that's very important to us because, like Diana said, there are a lot of vendors in this space. Everybody who can create technology thinks that they can actually have a product. It's not a one and done. We always want to focus on the customer. Customers' needs are constantly changing. Customers are under a lot of demand from their customers to provide better quality information. So it's our job to make our customers look good in front of their customers. So if you take that approach, be more customer centric and look at technology as it's an ever evolving thing. We constantly have to tell ourselves what works, great. What doesn't work, we need to change. And you take that mindset. But in order to do that, we need the customers, whether it's brokers, carriers, to take part in the roadmap of the technology. That philosophy is very important. If you're a technology provider, my suggestion is take that approach. You'll go much further out. If you're a customer looking for technology, demand that. Demand a lot more from your technology vendor.
Great points. I think one of the things I just heard there that I think is very important is, there's the technology aspect of it, right? The accuracy, the real-time aspect of it, the features, functions, so forth. But that's only part of it because you ultimately have to get compliance. Yeah, you ultimately have to get carriers to use it. You ultimately have to get, drivers to accept it. And that's something that, obviously technology plays a role there. Is it easy to use? Is it disruptive? So on and so forth. So how the technology does play a role there. But there is that roll up your sleeves, working together, collaborative, communicating with the carriers, communicating with the drivers, communicating with the extended partners to drive that, compliance and being able to provide that support, I think is, as you said, part of, what customers ought to demand, as part of, this type of project, this type of journey. So I want to thank you both for, making the time to be with us today. Like I always say, we always manage to scratch the surface on these topics, but, both of you provided some great insights and advice, on this topic. So Diana, Prasad, thank you both for making the time to be with us today.
Thanks, Adrian. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Adrian. Thanks, Dan.
Great. I want to thank those of you that joined us. If you're watching this episode on demand, either at the Trucker Tools website or on Talking Logistics, and you've got a question for Diana or Prasad, you can post it there, and I'm sure they'll be more than happy to respond via that medium. Again, thank you for joining us, and look forward to seeing you in a future episode of Talking Logistics. Have a great day.